Hey everybody, HomeSliceHenry here, and in today's video we're going to be taking a look at some spicy battles in the Love Cup featuring MOWED. MOWED is a grass and electric type Pokemon with the moveset of Thundershock, Ominous Wind, and Thunderbolt. So while it does have access to a bait move, unfortunately it doesn't get same type attack bonus on Ominous Wind, meaning that it's pretty much going to be reliant on Thunderbolt to do any meaningful damage. For the stats, it is a fairly glassy pick, so we're going to need all the help we can get. So without further ado, let's hop into the matches and check out MOWED in action in the Love Cup. Hopping to the first match, picking up a terrible lead Charizard into a LOWNS. Immediate save switch into Hisuian Electrode, and my opponent responds with Ariados. Ariados, of course, can hit for massive super effective damage with the lunge. Lunge lands and gets me deep into the red. Electrode able to reach the back-to-back Wild Charges. The question is, can I live the Poison Sting here? Wild Charge lands, and with a sliver of HP, I live the Poison Sting, make it to Wild Charge number 2, and Electrode forces a shield advantage from the Ariados. This is massive. As I mentioned at the start, MOWED is very glassy, so I'm definitely going to need a shield advantage to try and close this endgame. Cross Poison lands, Charizard looking for the farm down, but unfortunately they make it to one last Cross Poison. That's gonna KO. I bank the Dragon Claw, in comes MOWED. In the back, they have Slowbro. Oh my goodness, MOWED may actually be able to close out this game. I'm going straight for the Thunderbolt. It gets shielded, and as you may notice, these confusions are absolutely shredding MOWED. MOWED will commit the shield on the Psychic. MOWED going for the Thunderbolt here. This Thunderbolt should be getting rid of the Slowbro, and then send back in a LOWNS. A LOWNS about to get its lawn mowed by MOWED. Firing off this Thunderbolt. This Thunderbolt will hit for some big damage onto a LOWNS. A LOWNS sees the writing on the wall and concedes the match. We've got a mirror lead in the next game, Charizard versus Charizard. I'm going to stay in this matchup to start, go straight for the Blast Burn, and then I will be looking to save switch out of here. My opponent overfarms, so I'm going to get to fire off my move first. Blast Burn gets the shield, I send in Hisuian Electrode, and I'm going to shield here as well. I definitely do not want to take a Blast Burn. Opponent full sends it, and then they're going to send in Scrafty. Scrafty farming up some energy. I will fire off the Energy Ball. This will deal some solid chip damage without lowering my defense. I continue to farm. Scrafty easily has enough for the foul play here, and they are going to go straight for it. Foul play gets the Electrode low. I decide to take one extra counter to minimize the amount of farm that Charizard gets, but my opponent shields. That's actually quite nice for me. I'm going to send in the Charizard. I should be able to tank a foul play here, so I am going to let that through. Foul play not going to KO. I bank the Dragon Claw for later. Send in the ROTOM, and ROTOM gets the farm down. We'll have to see what do they have in the back. We already know about the Charizard. Their final Pokemon is a Hisuian Electrode. That's not what I was hoping to see, as unfortunately, due to Electrode's typing, it would double resist Thunderbolt, so I'm stuck going for the Ominous Wind, and that just does basically no damage. They're going to fire off the Energy Ball. Energy Ball lands, and that does so much damage, as ROTOM is very, very glassy. I'm constantly looking to overfarm here, because I'm expecting at some point, opponent is going to try and send in the Charizard, and when they do, I want to be close to a Thunderbolt, so I will commit the shield. They go for another Energy Ball. I continue to farm up, and I'm going for the Ominous Wind. This will not quite KO, but it will get them low. Ominous Wind lands, in comes Charizard, and I'm able to make it to the Thunderbolt. This Thunderbolt will easily one-shot, and I have a Dragon Claw loaded on my Charizard. Opponent forced to throw energy, and this should be game over, because Charizard has the Dragon Claw loaded, and Dragon Claw will be taking care of the Hisuian Electrode and getting the win. Moving into the next match, picking up a tough lead Charizard into Slowbro. Typically, I would save switch into the Electrode, but I decided to try something new. I save switch into the ROTOM, and I am very quickly realizing that is a bad idea as my opponent responds with Ariados. If I save switch the Electrode, Electrode can at least force a shield versus Ariados, whereas ROTOM cannot. I fire off the Thunderbolt, my opponent knows they can tank it, they farm down, and suddenly, we're at even shields, whereas before, Electrode save switch was able to grab a shield from the Ariados. So now this endgame is going to be a lot more difficult considering that we're at shield parity. They fire off the Cross Poison, I'm going to let that through, get the farm down. My switch clock is not quite up yet, so I will fire off the Dragon Claw just to burn the timer, and then I have to hope that Electrode can clutch this game for me. In comes Electrode, they have Medicham in the back, and this Medicham is running Power Up Punch, and unfortunately, this is just going to be game over here. I lose the 2s to Power Up Punch Medicham, so I concede the match. Picking up a decent lead in the next match, Charizard into Talonflame. Honestly, my entire team does pretty well versus Talonflame. I'm going to farm up and then fire off the Blast Burn just before they're able to make it to the Brave Bird. Blast Burn will do quite a bit of damage onto the Talonflame. Talonflame does have enough for the Brave Bird, so I will of course commit the shield. Opponent actually baits with a Flame Charge there. Charizard continuing to farm. I'm going to fire off the Dragon Claw on the CMP tie, continuing to apply pressure to my opponent. Dragon Claw gets the shield. This should only be a Flame Charge, so I can comfortably let this go, send in the Electrode, and look for the snipe. In comes the Electrode, and I get the farm down. That's big. Opponent sends in Scrafty. Scrafty going straight Power Up Punch in this matchup, and that is perfectly fine by me. Power Up Punch, not going to do a lot of damage. I'm going to farm up quite a bit, go for the Energy Ball here. Energy Ball will get them low, and then I'm very close to the Wild Charge here. I go for the Wild Charge, and I end up winning CMP, so my opponent went for a Power-Up Punch, and that works out nicely for me, as now my attack is going to be lowered. They did burn their final shield on the Energy Ball, so now I have that shield advantage that I often want with my Rotom. I can send back in the Charizard, as Charizard will be able to output some damage. They have a Shadow Electrode in the back, and now Rotom has to try and deal with a Shadow Electrode. They go for the Foul Play. That deals a ton of damage, but the nice thing is these Volt Switches are doing basically no damage due to the double resist from the Electric Grass typing. I go for the Ominous Wind. Ominous Wind, unfortunately, is not going to give me the boost. I'm going to continue to farm and expend this final shield. My opponent goes for a Discharge there. I mean, either way, it's going to be the same energy, and I'm going for the Thunderbolt on the CMP tie. I need this to KO. Thunderbolt gets the KO. In comes the Scrafty. I'll fire the Ominous Wind to burn the clock because I have a move stored on Charizard. Ominous Wind and the combo play into the Charizard. That Electrode was scary in the end game, but we're able to get the win. Picking up a tricky lead in the next match, Charizard into Lickitung. Lickitung, due to its massive bulk, is a bit of a hassle for this team to deal with. I'm going to stay in the matchup to start with Charizard, because landing a Blast Burn could do a lot of good for me. I'm going straight for the Blast Burn here, hoping my opponent lets it through. Blast Burn is going to land, dealing massive damage onto the Lickitung. I do tank a Body Slam, so now I can just throw 5 more Wing Attacks and then fire off the Dragon Claw. I have to hope that this is going to be able to KO, because this is a CMP tie. Let's see. Dragon Claw KOs the Lickitung, and I'm able to win the lead. That is terrific. Opponent gonna send in Medicham. Charizard farming up, and I try and go for a CMP tie on a potential Ice Punch, but they know better. They're just going to shield up and go for the farm down. Now I'm going to send in my Rotom. Rotom is, of course, going to commit the shield, but I do have access to Ominous Wind, which can hit for super effective here. They go for the Psychic. Rotom continuing to farm, going for the Ominous Wind. Let's see, is the opponent willing to burn their final shield here? Ominous Wind is going to land. We do not see a boost, and I will probably expend the final shield here on the Rotom. Turns out they do have Ice Punch after all. I'm going to overfarm quite a bit and fire off this Ominous Wind. Ominous Wind will KO if they let it through, which they do. In the back, they have Talonflame. I'm going to bank the Thunderbolt and send in Electrode. My opponent easily has enough here for a Flame Charge. Flame Charge onto the Electrode. Electrode hangs on and makes it to the Wild Charge. Wild Charge will grab the shield, and I have the Thunderbolt loaded on the Rotom. Rotom on very little HP takes down the Talonflame, and that is a good game. Great lead in the next match. Charizard into Ariados. Very happy to catch it on the lead. Opponent save switches into Electrode, and I'm going to respond with my own Electrode. So now we have the battle of Kanto Electrode versus Hisuian. I'm going to strike first, going for the Energy Ball. Energy Ball is going to land. My opponent has farmed up past the Hyper Beam. I'm going to respect it with a shield. My opponent goes for a Discharge. That tells me they do have the Hyper Beam. In this case, odds are they're probably going to be shielding up this Energy Ball, in which case I'm more than happy to give up my final shield if it means not losing switch. I need to have the Ariados aligned against the Charizard, and there's the Hyper Beam from my opponent. I should just be able to farm down now. They make it to a last second move, but this is only a Discharge. We've already seen their entire moveset. Discharge not going to be doing anything. I get the farm down, and if they send in the Ariados is going to have to shield, or it will get KO'd by these back-to-back Wild Charges. Wild Charge number 1, able to land. I'll overfarm slightly and go for Wild Charge number 2. Is my opponent willing to burn the final shield here? They are not. They have a Lomomola in the back. In comes Mo Rotom, and that is a good game. The good leads continue in the next match. Charizard into Medicham. Very happy to catch the Medi on the lead. My opponent save switches into their Slowking, and I'm going to respond with my Rotom. Rotom farming up some energy and going to fire off the Thunderbolt. Thunderbolt is going to grab a shield from my opponent. But as you see, these confusions are tearing through my Rotom, and suddenly, I think I made a pretty big mistake. I could have brought in the Electrode, but by bringing in the Rotom, it looks like I'm just going to get 2 shield confusion down, which is absolutely atrocious. Rotom is just so glassy that now I've lost switch advantage and things are looking absolutely terrible for me. Psychic is landed. That deals a ton of damage. I'm going to farm up, bank a Blast Burn, send in the Electrode. Electrode is going to have to burn the final shield, but I want an energy lead to take on whatever my opponent has in the back. And they have Galarian Slowbro, so they're running the double slow family, but their Slowbro is Galarian. I fire off the Wild Charge. That's going to get them low, and I'm going for Wild Charge number 2 to get the KO here. This Wild Charge gets rid of the Slowbro. Opponent sends back in the Medicham. Medicham gets the farm down. Can Charizard one-shot with a Blast Burn? Unfortunately, the answer is no. They go for the power-up punch there. I have to throw the Blast Burn here and just hope it's going to be enough to KO. But as you see, XL Medicham just too tanky, and that's game over. Tough lead in the next match, Charizard into Kanto Electrode. I will need to immediately save switch into my own Electrode. My opponent is going to respond with their own Charizard. Their Charizard is farming up a ton of energy. I'm just going straight for the Wild Charge. No baiting here. Opponent calls the bait, and they lose a Blast Burn's worth of energy. Oh my goodness, that is a massive stroke of good luck. I'm going to fire off the energy ball, get the shield from my opponent. I am debuffed due to my throwing the Wild Charge, and I kind of want to save my Electrode for later. So I will actually commit the shield here, and you know what? I'm going to double shield. I feel like my Electrode will be useful later in the game, so I want to try and preserve it if at all possible. My opponent has to go for foul plays versus my Electrode, not discharges, so let's see if I can make a bit of a fancy play here. I farm up, switch, and then catch a move from an electric type onto my Flyer, but it's the foul play, so it's only neutral. In the back, my opponent has Slowbro, so I was right in assuming that my Hisuian Electrode would have value in the endgame. Dragon Claw gets them low. I will be able to make one final Dragon Claw as well, and this will be getting them very low. Slowbro lets it through, and now, I have 2 Grass Electric types left. I can send in the Rotom. Even if they fire off the Ice Beam here, I still get the win. They fire off Psychic. That's not gonna cut it. Rotom gets the farm down. In comes Electrode, and I can just fire off this Ominous Wind. Even if my opponent shields, these electric moves are double resisted. Volt Switch just not going to cut it versus Rotom. We make it to the Ominous Wind, win the CMP tie, and secure the game. Hopping into the final match, leading Charizard into Medicham, a fantastic lead. Opponent is going to save switch into their Ariados. Oh my goodness, they are absolutely core broken by Charizard on the lead. Odds are their third Pokemon is probably something really strong against the Charizard. So what I'm going to do is KO the Ariados, and then if they bring in their one Charizard counter, I'm going to look to pivot. My opponent is going to wait their clock here. Could be like a Magcargo or an Alomomola. They send in Alomomola. I'm going to pivot into my Hisuian Electrode because I want to save my Charizard for the inevitable return of that Medicham. They fire off the Psychic. Psychic will do quite a bit of damage. They're staying in here. I don't think their clock is quite up yet, so I will fire off the Energy Ball. Energy Ball gets the shield. Back in comes the Medicham. I'm farming up. Unfortunately, I can't quite make it to the back-to-back Wild Charges. I fire off the first, and unfortunately, I will be KO'd there. But the good news is, I still have my Charizard. I'm firing off the Dragon Claw, just getting any chip damage that I can onto the Medicham. Dragon Claw gets the shield. My opponent full committing to this Medicham, and I can just save the shields for Rotom. They go for the Ice Punch. In comes Rotom. They will be able to grab a shield with the Ice Punch, but that is perfectly fine by me. I can shield up the Ice Punch. I should even be able to overfarm a bit in this matchup. Go for the Ominous Wind. With no shields remaining, Ominous Wind will KO, and then bad news for the Alomomola. It is switch locked. It's their final Pokemon, and there's nothing they can do against this Rotom. Rotom fires off the Thunderbolt, plus a Thunder Shock that's gonna KO, and that is a good game. All in all, I feel like these battles ended up being more of a showcase of how strong the Alomomola Hisuian Electrode core is than a feature of Rotom. ROTOM, unfortunately, its moveset is really not the best, and its lackluster stats as well really leave it in a position where to have any meaningful success with it, you need to pair it with an extremely strong meta core around it. So I can wholeheartedly recommend if you're looking to rank up using the Alomomola and Hisuian Electrode core. However, I would probably leave ROTOM on the bench. Anyways, thank you guys so much for watching. If you're enjoying the content, make sure to leave a like and subscribe to the channel if you haven't. And a special thank you as always to our members here on YouTube. The support you guys provide is absolutely incredible. So thank you guys oh so very much. And until next time, I've been HomeSliceHenry.